History Network show. It is Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, and we are live. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. So I saw this, there was a really good clip from, a really good segment from NBC News from July 19th. And they did an extensive video talking about built to keep black from white, and it deals with the segregation wall built in Detroit, 8 Mile, Wyoming area, northwest Detroit. And this wall was built back in about 1941. Okay. As I was saying, there's an extensive article from NBC News. We're going to share some of that with you. I printed this article out. It is 14 pages long. All right. But a Detroit neighborhood stands in the shadow of a segregation wall built 80 years ago. A Detroit neighborhood stands in the shadow of a segregation wall built 80 years ago. In 1941, a developer in Detroit built the Burwood Wall, a barrier meant to separate black residents from white residents. 80 years later, it's now believed to be one of the last physical relics of segregation in the North. And it is leaving behind a legacy much larger than its original intent. Okay, so this is fantastic reporting from NBC News in conjunction with Bridge Detroit. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Also, we're going to deal, speaking of the North, you know, yesterday's show, we talked about the Confederate monuments that were removed in Charlottesville, Virginia, of Thomas Stonewall Jackson and General Robert E. Lee. Okay. And that was removed Saturday, July 10th. But I wanted to deal with the July 13th, 1863, and the New York City draft riots during the Civil War, a few months after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued by President Abraham Lincoln. We did not get a chance to deal with that on yesterday's show, so we're going to talk about it definitely here on today's show, second part of today's show. I'll also give you more information about the new online course that I'm teaching, 10-week online course that starts up Saturday, July 24th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power. Okay, 1865 to 1968. And we're going to deal with about a 100-year period of time. Each class will break. It's going to be a 10-week course. Each class will break down a 10-week, a 10-year period of time in this class also. Okay, so I'll give you some more information about that. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. I want to jump into, we're going to go to clip one here in just a second. I want to jump into this first story here. So this, I saw the article at NBC's website, NBCnews.com, and I saw some of this segment on MSNBC. And this ties so much history together. History of the Great Migration, redlining, segregation, history after World War II. All this history is connected. So if we look at this piece here from, I'm going to pull this article up here from NBC News, built to keep black from white, built to keep black from white. 80 years after a segregation wall rose in Detroit, America remains divided. That's not an accident. So what similar things like this happen all across the country. All right. And for us to fix what happened, correct what happened, we have to understand the history of what happened. This is why this history has to be taught in schools. So let me turn on the screen share and flip over to this. And these are some of the things that I'm going to deal with in the 10-week online course that starts up Saturday, July 24th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Power Movement, 1865 to 1968. Okay, built to keep black from white. 80 years after a segregation wall rose in Detroit, America remains divided. That's not an accident. So in the article, they talk about some of the people who live in the 8 Mile, Wyoming area. And they talk about their families and moving into the area. But this wall is called Burwood Wall, 8 Mile Wall, or Wailing Wall. Okay. And this report is a 6-month investigation by NBC News and Bridge Detroit. So it talks about Margaret Watson. When they started building the wall behind Margaret Watson's house in Northwest Detroit, she knew the reason without having to ask. As a child in the late 1930s, Margaret Watson had seen the new streets laid down like a tic-tac-toe board in the open fields where her father once planted a garden the size of a city block. She would roller skate down those newly paved lanes at speeds that would have been impossible on the dirt roads that ran in front of her house. She knew the streets had to be for white families. She knew the streets had to be for white families, not African-American families like hers. So she was not particularly surprised when in the spring of 1941, a 6-foot-high, 4-inch thick, half-mile-long concrete fortification suddenly appeared in her backyard. It's kind of like when we saw, bike lanes being drawn up and down downtown Detroit. Okay, we knew those were for white people. I lived in downtown Detroit for 30 years. Going back to 1990, we had no bike lanes. So when we saw bike lanes coming, we knew gentrification was coming and white people were coming. It's the same thing here back in 1941. She knew the new streets had to be for white families, not for African-American families like hers. So she wasn't particularly surprised when in the spring of 1941, a 6-foot-high, 4-inch thick, half-mile-long concrete fortification suddenly appeared in her backyard. If white people were moving in, she reasoned they need a way to keep her out. So Margaret Watson is now 93 years old. And she said, I don't remember feeling any way about it, except it was the same old, same old. She still lives in that house and recalled being excluded from certain restaurants and stores growing up. She said, quote, I lived in Detroit all my life. Detroit has been segregated all my life. Now, the wall in Margaret Watson's backyard was built by white real estate developers who struggled to secure financing for their white neighborhood until they cut it off from an African-American neighborhood. It is one of a number of segregation walls built in the mid 20th century for this purpose, and one of a few walls that is still standing. It's one of a few walls that is still standing. We're coming up here on a break. You can give us a call, 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. If you have a question or comment, listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world. Bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30 plus channels, thousands of shows. Black on Purpose Television Network. Subscribe now.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
Digital Dandelion's Technical Solutions works with businesses like yours to create an operations manual for your business, which is something many businesses don't have. According to AARP, more than 30% of small business owners are over 50 years old. Many business owners want to retire by selling their businesses or by passing their businesses on to their children. However, according to Forbes Investment Advisors, many retiring owners' attempts to sell their businesses for retirement fail. You cannot sell your business without a business manual. Your children also cannot inherit your business because there is no way to run it. Your business does not have to die when you leave. Their business Bible products will give you the tools you need for a thriving business that can make you money even after you retire. Are you looking at increasing your business's annual revenue? Digital Dandelions can help you make at least $100,000 in annual revenue and expand your business. Speak with them today about solidifying your business. Visit digitaldandelions.com today and get a free 30-minute consultation.
910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, and we're live. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a quick question or comment. If you want to support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register now for the new 10-week online course that I teach, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power. 1865 to 1968. We have the information right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. When you go to our website, you scroll down the page, you'll see the information for our radio show. We're here 6 days a week. Scroll down, you'll see the information there. Classes start up Saturday, July 24th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. This is a 10-week online course. Each week we'll deal with about a 10-year period of time. And we're looking at from 1865, we deal with 40 Acres and a Mule, Juneteenth, assassination of Abraham Lincoln, end of the Civil War, 13th Amendment. All that's in 1865. And then we'll do 1865 to 1877 Reconstruction. And we'll go from 1865 up until 1968, Black Power movement, assassination of Dr. King, and deal with history, that 100-year period of history to understand what happened and how we got to where we are today. And right on the homepage of our website, click on register here. It takes you to the next page, and you click on enroll, and you can enroll in the class. As soon as you register, click right here for enroll. As soon as you register, you can start watching archive content. Okay. We do the classes live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch them over and over again. So, I mean, I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have guest speakers, book references, articles, video clips. This class is going to blow you away. All right. Some of the information I'm talking about today, we're going to have some of that type of content in the online course also. All right. I want to go back to, we're going to go to clip 1 in just a second here. I want to go back to, the article here from NBC News. Name of this article is an extensive article in conjunction with Bridge Detroit. Built to keep black from white, 80 years after a segregation wall rose in Detroit, America remains divided. That's not an accident. Okay. And this article deals with a lot of history. Somebody that was referenced in this article is Thomas Segregated. And Thomas Segregated wrote a book that I came across back when we were going through that fake bankruptcy here in Detroit. Name of his book is this book right here from Thomas Segregated. The Origins of the Urban Crisis, Race and Inequality in Post-War Detroit. The Origins of the Urban Crisis, Race and Equality in Post-War Detroit. Okay, by Thomas Segregated. He's a university professor. If people in Detroit had read this and knew about this information when that fake bankruptcy was going on and when that mayoral election was going on with the write-in candidate, all that stuff, the course of history would have been different here in Detroit. But people fell for the okie doke and didn't understand history. And, you know, I told them back then, gentrification is coming. Now people see what I was talking about. All right. Let's go back to this article here. So the wall in Margaret Watson's backyard was built by white real estate developers who struggled to secure financing for their white neighborhood until they cut it off from an African-American neighborhood. It is one of a number of segregation walls built in the mid 20th century for this purpose, and one of a few of those walls still standing. Now here is a picture of the wall here also. It's about a half mile long, or so. And it's been, painted like a mural now. Now the divider this wall called the Burwood Wall, the 8 Mile Wall, or the Wailing Wall cannot be blamed for inventing segregation, but the barrier and the policies that led to its existence would have far-reaching repercussions for people, both African American and white, who lived in its shadow. On the east side, the black side. So on the east side of the wall was the African American side of the wall. The west side of the wall is the white side of the wall. We're going to see that opportunities and the way people lived and even financing for homes is going to be different depending upon which side of that wall you lived on. Okay. Now, others felt pinned in by the wall. Others felt pinned in by the wall and the racism it represented. While the barricade, which ran through an alley between two residential streets, was not guarded and did not extend across intersections, the towering concrete sent a clear message about who was unwelcome to cross the wall. On the west side, which was the white side of the wall, some children who moved into the houses that sprouted along the new streets in the 1940s, now in their 70s, who are now in their 70s and 80s, say they never knew the wall was there. They say they never knew the wall was there, just as they did not know that the houses their parents bought back then had deed restrictions barring residents who were not white. Okay. Now, these deed restrictions are called restrictive covenants. Okay, these are restrictive covenants, and the restrictive covenants, what this did was they had written in the deeds of homes, and it wasn't just here in Detroit. You see this across the country. They had written in the deeds that the home could not be sold to somebody who was not white. And this is how they were locking African Americans out of opportunity to buy homes, locking us out of opportunities to accumulate wealth through home ownership. Okay, now they never talked about race with their parents or friends. They said or wondered why they attended the mostly white McDowell Elementary School, which enrolled children from the west side of the wall, which is the white side of the wall, rather than the mostly African-American Higginbotham School, which enrolled children from the east side of the wall. So what we're going to see is how laws are being used to segregate housing, but segregate opportunity, segregate the ability to accumulate wealth. And this is going to have lifelong consequences. This is segregation coming from laws and policies and coming from the federal government as well, because the redlining system is created by the federal government. Okay. The redlining system is created by the federal government, and redlining is going to be created about 1937. We'll talk about that. All right. I want to go to this clip here from NBC News. Okay. And the name of this clip is a Detroit neighborhood stands in the shadow of a segregation wall built 80 years ago. Okay, let's go to this clip.
The wall is directly across the street from my house. I can stand in my front door or in my front living room window, and I can see the wall. One question people always ask me is, do you want the wall to be torn down? No, I don't. The history of what went on, why it went on, and how we can change things, that history needs to be told. I've been here for 62 years. We moved out here in February of 1959. That's me. When we moved over here, the wall was there. We didn't know what it was. Our parents didn't tell us what it was. I don't even know if my mom and dad knew. It was kind of like the fence. It divided Burwood and Mendota. And the kids that lived on the Mendota side wanted to come to the park, so they would hop the wall. That's what the wall was to us. It was like a fence, you know. That's all.
I had a close friend that I often studied with in the library.
Hey, pause it right there. Pause it right there, Shakita.
My friend invited me over to his house, actually a couple of blocks.
Pause it right there, please.
And we came across this massive wall which seemed to terminate nowhere, just went on. And he kind of smiled and said that the kids who come to the neighborhood, this is one of their initiation rituals. You climb the wall and walk it as far as you can, backyard. And I just looked up at him and said, this is really absurd. Why would they not have put a chain link fence up to separate neighborhoods rather than this brick wall? And he kind of changed his expression, looked down at me and said, it was to keep people like you away from people like me.
This is the Burwood Wall, part of Detroit's 8 Mile, Wyoming neighborhood. Built to separate black residents on one side and white residents on the other. A housing developer built this wall in 1941 in order to guarantee mortgage loans for white families in a new development to the west. Loans black families were denied at the time.
When the developer went to the local banks, they, of course, inquired of the FHA because they wanted their mortgage loans insured. The FHA said, you know, this new development is all well and good, but it borders an area that is considered hazardous. You would be building homes adjacent to a black community, and there's potential for racial strife. And so he went directly to the FHA and said, what if I construct
Pause the clip right there.
Substantial 6-foot concrete wall?
Thank you. All right. The first woman that you heard speaking was Teresa Moon. Teresa Moon is a resident of 8 Mile. Okay. 8 Mile is for those that don't know, 8 Mile is the border separating Detroit from the suburbs. The movie about Eminem's life, like in the Detroit area called 8 Mile, that's what it's talking about. That's the border. All right. Now, this gentleman that is speaking right now is he's the author of a book. Let me see here. This is Gerald Van Dusen. Gerald Van Dusen, author of the book called Detroit's Burwood Wall, Hatred and Healing in the West 8 Mile Community. This is Gerald Van Dusen, author. Back the clip up about a minute, please. Gerald Van Dusen, author of Detroit's Burwood Wall, Hatred and Healing in the West 8 Mile Community. And he's a white man, and he's in his 80s, and he's talking about growing up in that area in Detroit and the wall, okay, and not knowing about the segregation that was taking place in Detroit. Even though we didn't have colored only signs and things like this in Detroit, there was segregation taking place. Let's go back to the clip, please.
When you see the Burwood Wall, you kind of think of a southern water fountain or a cafeteria counter. You think of an artifact that would be more associated with segregation in the South. You don't think of it in the North. But to see the construction of a segregation wall like this is an absolute slap in the face of Black Detroiters, first and second generation, certainly.
My grandmother, Bernice Avery, was a remarkable woman. It was my grandmother who became the vessel, the communicator, the person who led the community revolt against the inability to have equal treatment around housing. So the 6-foot concrete wall remained on the line of the alley at the rear of Burwood. Harvard Progressive Club members had been slapped in the face before, and this, though humiliating, did not faze their determination. My family, my grandparents and my great-grandparents moved here many years ago, having migrated from the South. What they did find was that the struggle continued, and that while the restrictions in the South were very direct, the restrictions in the North may be a little more subtle, but they certainly existed. They were told that there were places where they could not go, could not live.
Bernice and other activists fought this injustice, writing letters to public officials and lobbying the government until they won access to federal loans and mortgages for the community in 1944. Because of their work, more than 1,500 Black residents bought and built homes in the neighborhood. Among those were Teresa and her family.
It wasn't so much that they were making a point around immigration, or whether or not they cared whether or not they had a white neighbor. It was fundamentally that they should have the choice to live where they wanted to live. Her view was that as a Black family, the right thing to do was to give them the opportunity to live in a home. That is just like a basic right.
And in 1948, a Supreme Court case ruled against racially restrictive housing covenants, like the ones that prevented Black families from buying houses west of the wall. But as Black residents began to move in on both sides of the wall, white residents fled to the nearby suburbs. In the decades since, what was once a vibrant Black community was hit hard. The city saw a complex mix of challenges: factory closures, racial tensions, job loss, bankruptcy. Over time, the Black middle class fled the city, and a housing crisis took its toll on 8 Mile, along with the rest of Detroit.
It's changed a lot. A lot of houses are vacant around here, in disrepair. There's a lot of empty spaces, a lot of empty houses. When our family first moved out here, the majority of the people were homeowners.
All right. Hey,
what I learned as being a homeowner,
pause it right there.
And the people in this community.
Pause it right there. And just back up about 20, 30 seconds. Okay. So, if we go back to the article here, so we see like where the Burwood Wall is. It slices through the 8 Mile, Wyoming neighborhood, which is northwest Detroit, just below 8 Mile Road, Detroit's storied northern border. Okay. Now, I want to go back to, let me back up here. There was a part here. I'm on page 1 of the article. Now, let's see. Where is this? Okay. So the east side of the wall is where African Americans live. The west side is where white people live. Now on the west side, the white side of the wall, some children moved into houses that sprouted along the new streets in the 1940s, now in their 70s and 80s. They're now in their 70s and 80s. Okay. Stephen Bean, who is now 80 years old, said race was not a major issue at the time. Race was not a major issue at the time. He is white and grew up near the 8 Mile Wall, Burwood Wall. He said everybody just sort of got along. Everybody just sort of got along. Okay. And if we back up to the previous paragraph, it talked about how new streets in the 1940s, the people are now in their 70s and 80s. They say they never knew the wall was there, just as they did not know that the houses their parents bought back then had deed restrictions barring residents who were not white. Okay, these are the restrictive covenants I was talking about. Now, whether people who lived near the wall knew of its existence, they were profoundly shaped by the racist policies and profiteering that built the wall. Okay, whether they knew the wall existed, whether they knew why it was there or not, their existence, they were profoundly shaped by the racist policies and profiteering that built this wall. According to nearly 36 interviews with current and former residents of the area in Northwest Detroit, 8 Mile, Wyoming area, Northwest Detroit. According to nearly 36 interviews with current and former residents of the area and their descendants, conversations with experts, and hundreds of pages of land and business records, historical documents, and archival materials. In a 6-month investigation, NBC News and Bridge Detroit is a local publication here. Bridge Detroit discovered that one of Detroit's most prominent families built the wall and developed the adjacent white neighborhood. The reporting also examined the ways the single act of segregation, the reporting also examined the ways this single act of segregation has influenced generations of Detroiters. Okay, so what we're dealing with now, once again, see, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This is what politics is. And see, 1952, 1956, we're going to see the expressways run throughout the U.S. and they're going to run through Detroit. About 1964, I-375 is going to run through, knocking out Black Bottom, which is an area where African Americans own homes, and knocking out businesses in the business district, Paradise Valley. Okay, there's about 300 businesses wiped out in Paradise Valley, and we're going to see this take place all across the country. Homes and businesses wiped out, land taken through eminent domain that African Americans own. Land taken through eminent domain. We saw it happen when Interstate 244 and US 75 run through Tulsa, Oklahoma, run through the Greenwood district, okay, where African Americans were in Tulsa, and wipe out businesses and wipe out homes and land taken through eminent domain. Okay, we talked about that in early June when we commemorated the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. All right, now let's go back to this article quickly here. So the side of the wall these residents called home would later affect the sale. The side of the wall these residents called home would later affect the sale price of their houses, the value of their next homes, and eventually the wealth they might inherit from their parents. Okay. See, this is how, when you talk about critical race theory, which is a legal analysis in understanding laws and policies, things like this, this is some of the things that critical race theory deals with. And this is why you got certain people that want to shut this down, because once you start figuring out how this whole thing is constructed, just like a bomb, you can deactivate it. You can deconstruct it and rebuild it once you figure out how this whole thing is put together. So the side of the wall these residents called home would later affect the sale price of their houses, the value of their next homes, and eventually the wealth that they might inherit from their parents. Their experience in elementary school would determine the classes they take in high school, their decisions about college or the military, and the ease with which they achieved their goals. And throughout their lives, the friendships they made would frame their interactions with classmates and colleagues, with doctors and law enforcement, and social settings and job interviews. So we're seeing the trajectory oftentimes of people's future being laid by the environment that they're from and the opportunities that they're given or segregated out of. And when we look at the ability to purchase homes, not using predatory schemes, not using predatory avenues, but being able to get loans through the federal government, low interest loans like white people can get, and be able to buy these homes, and they accumulate in value. And then this helps you obtain generational wealth or intergenerational wealth. So I want to look at this other article here. This is from, then we'll go back to the clip. This other piece here is from InTheseTimes.com, okay? And this is an article that I reference I in some of my presentations that I do dealing with history and the Great Migration, and also dealing with the history of Detroit. This is an article that I reference. A half century after Detroit uprising, cities still stranded by capitalism and federal government. Okay, a half century after Detroit uprising, cities still stranded by capitalism and federal government. How federal policy and Big Otto drove black blight and white flight. How federal policy from the federal government and Big Otto, the big three, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, drove black blight and white flight. Now, this is by Marilyn Katz for InTheseTimes.com, August 8th, 2013. The original name of this article was called Beyond the Myth of Black Mis. It was called Detroit's Downfall, Beyond the Myth of Black Misleadership. That was the original name of this article. They changed the name of the article for some reason. The original name of this article was called Detroit's Downfall, Beyond the Myth of Black Misleadership. And what this article shows, and what the history shows, if you actually study this, is that when African Americans, like in Detroit with Mayor Coleman Alexander Young, when he became mayor in 1974, what this shows is that when we became mayors of these inner cities were already on life support. When you study the history of Detroit, white people didn't start leaving Detroit when Coleman Alexander Young became mayor. White people started, we started seeing white flight in the 1950s, to be honest. And then 1961, you have Detroit has its first budget deficit in 1961. Okay. But by 1967, before the 67 rebellion, you're going to have 300,000 people to leave the city of Detroit. Okay. So this is what this article lays out. And they changed the name of it, but they talk about the federal housing policy. They talk about in this article, they talk about the federal housing policy. They talk about things like the Fair Housing Act, and they deal with the deindustrialization of the inner city as well. Okay. One of the things they talk about here is fueled by a population explosion during the late 1930s and 1940s, fueled by a population explosion during the late 1930s and 1940s, when tanks and airplanes for America's war effort rolled off the assembly lines. Detroit's population grew from 1.5 million people in 1930 to 1.8 million in 1950. So the population of Detroit peaks at about 1.8 million in 1950. And during the same period, thousands of more people came for the relatively low skilled but high paying union protected jobs at places like Ford and Chrysler and Packard and General Motors. However, by August of 1967, Detroit had lost more than 300,000 residents, equal to the population loss each decade since then. The nation still calls Detroit as Motor City, but by the end of the 1950s, it was certainly not that. Big Otto dealt the first blow. The big three, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, flush with cash from World War II and anticipating a huge growth in demand for their products. Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler abandoned Detroit's multi-story buildings, multi-story plants, the auto plants. They abandoned these multi-story auto plants in favor of new sprawling horizontal campuses on former farmland in Detroit's suburbs and in Ohio, Indiana, and Canada. Between 1947 and 1958, the big three built 25 new factories, none of them in Detroit. So what we're going to see is this deindustrialization of the inner city take place after World War II. It's post World War II. We're going to see the Federal Housing Act of 1949, which lets white people put 3% down on low interest loans and get houses built out in the newly formed suburbs. They're going to use the redlining system to restrict us from buying these homes and also restrict us from taking advantage of these low interest loans. When we try to buy homes in the inner city, we told that these are high risk areas. So we're locked out of being able to use a lot of these federal policies. You're going to have African-American men who served in World War II and some women who served in World War II who are trying to take advantage of the GI Bill and trying to take advantage of the low interest loans that they can get for being veterans. Okay. Many of them are going to be restricted in the areas they can buy homes in. All right. And we also see this restrictions in trying to take advantage of the low interest loans to start businesses and to go to college. Some of us are going to be able to go to college with the GI Bill, but there are going to be restrictions on how many of us can actually take advantage of these benefits that we earned, 1, 2, that our taxpayer dollars pay for. If you look at this piece here from blackpast.org dealing with redlining, blackpast.org, redlining 1937. It talks about how redlining refers to a discriminatory pattern of disinvestment and obstructive lending practices that act as an impediment to home ownership among African Americans and other people of color. Banks used the concept to deny loans to homeowners and would-be homeowners who lived in these neighborhoods. This in turn resulted in neighborhood economic decline and the withholding of services or their provision at an exceptionally high rate. We're talking about predatory lending that we were directed towards oftentimes. Now, the origin of the term redlining stems from the policies developed by the Homeowners Loan Corporation, the HOLC, which is a government entity created in 1933 by the Franklin Roosevelt administration. This is coming from the federal government. The HOLC, Homeowners Loan Corporation, was designed to reduce home foreclosures during the Great Depression, and then institutionalized by 1937, the U.S. Housing Act, which established the Federal Housing Association. We're going to see the redlining process, which is going to be used by the federal government to make loans on homes, and it's going to be used by insurance companies as well. We're going to see this instituted in 1937. Okay. And this is going to lock African Americans out of a lot of opportunities. All right. Read the rest of this article. We'll talk about this some more tomorrow. Read the rest of this article here from Detroit News. This is an extensive piece from the Detroit News. Built to keep black from white. Built to keep black from white. 80 years after segregation wall rose in Detroit, America remains divided. That's not an accident. If you like this type of information, be sure to register for the new 10-week online course that I'm teaching on Saturdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Name of this class is From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. It's a 10-week online course that I'm teaching. We do the class live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. When you scroll down the homepage of our website, you'll see the information here. Click on register here. It takes you to the next page. Click on enroll. As soon as you register, you can start watching. We have archive content. You can start watching there. The class is regularly $130, is on sale $80. Even after the course is over, you still have access to the archive content. And what we're going to do is we'll deal with the end of the Civil War, 40 Acres and a Mule, Special Field Order number 15, assassination of Lincoln, 13th Amendment, Juneteenth, all that's in 1865. And we're going to look at the Reconstruction era, Jim Crow, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. We're going to look at the reversal of rights and theft of land that African Americans were acquiring after the Civil War ends. And go into World War I, 1914 to 1918, go into the Great Migration during this period of time that we're talking about right now, 1941. This is right before World War II. U.S. gets involved in World War II, but this is during the Great Migration, 1915 to 1970. 6 million African Americans migrating from the South up north and out west, and this totally changes the country. Then we'll go through the Civil Rights Movement. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, Emmett Till, 1955, Montgomery bus boycott, December 1955. We'll go through the Civil Rights Movement through to the Black Power Movement and also the assassination of Dr. King. So we posted a link here. You can register for the class now. As soon as you register, you can start watching the first 3 sessions, the first 3 classes of another 10-week online course I teach called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this new class that I'm teaching, this picks up where the class dealing with understanding the transatlantic slave trade leaves off. All right. You can also support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. All right. Remember, right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, everybody. And also, you can support us through Cash App and PayPal. We're here 6 days a week. The African History Network show, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Okay. And this is our official Cash App account. When you do it through Cash App, it'll say Michael and show my picture there. Our actual Cash App tag is $ the AHN Show, SHOW. These other ones, these are fake African History Network Cash App accounts that people set up. All right. Let me see here. Okay. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Yeah, I'm still teaching the Sunday class also. Still teaching the Sunday class as well, Becky. Okay. And then tomorrow we'll get to the New York draft ride. We had technical difficulties and all this stuff going on today, so it took up time. We'll get to the New York draft ride of 1863 on tomorrow's show. All right, guys. We got to get out of here. Register for the new online course. That content's going to blow you away. Remember, right now it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world. Bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30 plus channels, thousands of shows. Black on Purpose Television Network. Subscribe now.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101